Good evening. It's great to see everybody here. Everybody must be ready to get back to school. The regular meeting of the Board of Education for August 29th, 2017 is called to order. Welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. Any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. This meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. This meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV services website. So interim Superintendent Awad is absent this evening, and I want to have a reminder that we have our PPS Ombudsman, Judy Martin, on the corner attending all our regular board meetings. Judy will be here to listen to the public comments and, if appropriate, provide additional support to families who need or want it. Judy can be reached at 503-916-3045 or at ombudsman@pps.net. We also have interpreters with us this evening, and I'd like to ask them to come forward at this time, introduce themselves in the language they will be interpreting, and inform the audience where they'll be located in the auditorium should someone need their assistance. We're getting better at this.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Lucía Cabrejos.
I'm not sure your mic's not working, I don't think.
You can use one of these.
Mi nombre es Lucía Cabrejos, soy intérprete en español y voy a estar sentada hacia atrás.
Jim, why don't you let them just use your mic?
Здравствуйте, я говорю на русском языке. Пожалуйста, кому нужен русский перевод, подойдите ко мне, я буду сзади там в вестибюле. Спасибо.
你好，我姓高嘅，我係你哋嘅中文翻譯，我是你們的普通話跟廣東話翻譯。如果需要我的話，我在後面，我喺後面，多謝。
Kính chào quý vị, nếu quý vị cần thông dịch viên người Việt Nam, xin quý vị ra phía sau của hội trường ở đây. Xin cảm ơn quý vị.
We're missing one of our interpreters. Okay. So thank you. So before we, first off tonight on our agenda is a public comment period, and before we begin, I'd like to review our guidelines for public comment. The board thanks the community for taking the time to attend this meeting and provide your comments to the board. We value public input as it informs our work, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board is to actively listen with our electronic devices turned off. Board members will not respond to comments or questions during public comment, but our board manager, Roseanne Powell, will follow up on issues raised during public testimony. Guidelines for public input emphasize respect and consideration of others. Complaints about individual employees should be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. If you're speaking during public comment, you have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments. Please begin stating your name and spelling your last name for the record. During the first 2 minutes of your testimony, a green light will appear, and when you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow light will go on, and when your time's up, a red light will go on. We respectfully ask that when the red light goes on that you conclude your comments. So we appreciate everybody coming this evening and for the input we're about ready to receive. And with that, Ms. Houston, do we have, I know we have public comment this evening.
Yes.
Can you tell us who's up first?
Sure. We have a total of 8 speakers, and our first 2 are students, Elaine Shaffer and Sophia Dexter.
Are you Sophia?
Oh.
Just
Test. Yeah.
Okay, you can go ahead and start, please.
Hi, my name is Elaine Shaffer, Shaffer. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my school, Access Academy. So, while I am not twice exceptional, I need Access Academy. At my neighborhood school, they were not able to accommodate my needs. I was reading Harry Potter, while the rest of the class was reading like books by Beverly Cleary and such that just were not up to my reading level. we went to the teacher for help, and she essentially laughed and said that we would need to go to another school because they could not accommodate my needs there. So I moved to a charter school. Now this school, they did try to accommodate my tag needs, but their education program was pretty much directly from the book. After skipping second grade there, they told me that I would need to again skip a grade, and so I would be a third grader in a fifth grade setting. That is not ideal, at least for my social level. So then I moved to Access. Now Access is definitely not ideal, or it's not the best school. So while they don't have any electives, they have no arts programs, and they have no sports. So tag kids need these too. If we're talking about robust middle schools have tag programs as well as the electives, sports, and art programs. So it's been hard for me to get the electives I need outside of school because I have to use my own time and our own money to do music and any sports. I can't imagine a kid without my privileges trying to get the accelerated learning and tag program they need. In conclusion, we need a larger school where growth is possible, so that all exceptional kids have the tag program they need as well as the electives they need. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We're going to be talking about middle schools later on, a lot this fall, so your input's going to be really helpful. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Sophia Dexter, and I just graduated from Access Academy last fall. In first grade, we started with 5 girls and 17 boys, and this year the third grade is very similar with 5 girls and 13 boys. As my class evolved, we ended with 13 out of around 60 kids being girls. The boys far outnumbered the girls, and even though this was clear and obvious, we never talked about it. When Mr. Wood was principal during my middle school years, he was trying very hard to improve the ratio of boys to girls, but this never really took full effect because this year it is back to the way it was when I was in elementary school. In general, girls don't get identified as needing access as much, but they are equally likely to test into the highly gifted range. Access's reputation as a boy-heavy school might be deterring girls from applying to Access who are highly gifted and would have otherwise. When I was in elementary school, I had we were playing sports like soccer and things that I wasn't very good at in PE, and the boys got very competitive and they started making fun of me and teasing me, and it was just traumatic and all. And when I was in 6th grade, my mom forced me to play volleyball to just get into a team sport. And it changed me into a whole new person. I felt so much more empowered and confident. And I think the lack of availability of team sports at Access makes it hard for other girls to make that same change in their mentality. I now attend St. Mary's Academy as a freshman, and one of the driving factors of my decision to apply was that I had never gotten to experience a class where girls were the majority. I thought the dynamic would be different and better for me than it was at Access, and it was, or it has been. I loved Access, and given the chance, I would without hesitation apply again, but I did feel the effects of a boy-heavy population. If we can even out the classes, many girls will have an even better experience and sense of empowerment than I did.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amelia Kotemari, Kotamarti, and I'm an 8th grader at Access Academy. And the reason that I'm here is because I think that the decision to block a lot of students who aren't twice exceptional from going into access should be changed. I'm not twice exceptional, but I still do need access, just like many other highly gifted students.
Whoops. You have more time, I think.
All right.
That's an error.
So I was going to start at Access in first grade, but the first grade was cut at the time, so my teachers and family thought it best to have me skip a grade. So I was born in June, and since I was skipping a grade, this resulted in me being around 1.5 years younger than all of my classmates. So I know that skipping a grade works out for some kids, but it really didn't for me. I ended up struggling socially, and I was still academically unchallenged. This caused me to become more anxious, and at the end of third grade, I developed tics. When I finally got into Access, I went back a year to be with peers the same age as me. With the fast-paced learning and the friends who understood me and what it was like to be highly gifted, I soon became much more socially confident, and my anxiety and tics disappeared. So I think that the standard for Access admissions this year is not what it should be. Access is a highly gifted program, one that supports kids with IEPs, kids with 504s, and kids with neither. I'm afraid that the admissions process is turning down too many kids like me whose struggles were inside and hard to be seen. Access's purpose is to challenge kids to learn up to their full potential. Its purpose is to help kids who have trouble learning in a normal environment, and you don't need to be twice exceptional to have these problems. Its purpose is to meet the needs of all highly gifted students. I hope that the decision is reconsidered and the doors to the kids who need access are reopened.
Thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your experiences.
I'm supposed to speak for Barrett Holden. She couldn't be here right now.
Okay, yeah, is that the last person signed up?
Hi, and thank you to the board members for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Barrett Holden, Holden, and I graduated from Access 2 years ago. I am here to speak to you about the importance of creating gender balance at Access Academy. My mom came to me today and asked me to speak about my experience at Access as a girl who scored in the 99th percentile and has learning differences. It is important to me to speak to you because I know girls' needs are often overlooked in the classroom, and as a feminist, I want to do what I can to make a difference. I have dyslexia, ADHD, and anxiety. In kindergarten, my parents enrolled me in Winter Haven because I like science. Winter Haven was a difficult place for me because we didn't know about my learning differences until 4th grade. I had managed to hide my learning differences for 5 years, and support in figuring that out and then helping me was nearly non-existent. I was bullied by the other kids for not reading and writing as well as they did, all the way from kindergarten through 5th grade, even when the other kids knew I was dyslexic. It was a toxic environment for me. My parents and I decided I need to go somewhere else for middle school, and we applied to Access. We also applied to Da Vinci, and I got into both. It was a hard choice, but when I visited Access, I loved the teachers and I felt really comfortable with the kids, so I chose Access. I'm really glad I did. The SPED teacher, Anne-Marie Zock, really understood my needs and gave me awesome support. She is the best. The teachers also understood my needs and were super supportive. When I did have an issue, our principal was helpful and understanding. And the best part, I was surrounded by kids who were like me, not necessarily with learning differences, but who got the way I think. It wasn't perfect, but it was the right place to be. There are many girls out there who, like me, didn't get seen as gifted and who hide their learning differences. Girls hide their needs more than boys and are less likely to be seen as needing support. This is why Access Academy has to try even harder to find and help those girls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next two speakers are Shauna Lane and Ginger Hughes.
Hi, my name is Shauna Lane, Lane is my last name. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you our concerns. My concern is around the middle school changes that have been proposed, and my primary concern is with what happened between recommendations from DBRAC and the plan that's been put forth. I can tell you that in conversation with many other parents that we have grave concerns about the work that DBRAC did, about the plan's fullness, that it's not looking at many of the things that they were charged with, looking at rebalancing enrollment at under-enrolled schools, building more robust programs, and doing all of this through an equity lens. So that is the first concern that I have, and I hope to hear some of those explanations tonight about where this program came from, because for the parent community, it seemed to come a little out of left field, these recommendations, and it seemed to discount the work of DBRAC, which was a tremendous amount of work from a lot of people looking at a lot of scenarios and really trying to do the best for our kids. The other issue that I want to second from the students that just spoke is that I believe wholeheartedly that Access needs a school that is built to allow it to expand to meet the needs of our community, all of our children, so that children do not have to make a choice between full and robust middle school programming and accelerated learning. I think that keeping Access in a smaller school and not allowing its expansion brings us back to where we were long before my tenure as an Access parent. I have a lot of concerns about that. And while for some odd reason that I hope we can talk about and look at more separately, this year's wait list doesn't exist after a whole new process. But that's a whole other issue. I think we really need to keep on the table that Access needs to be a full and robust school that's expanded so that there is no longer a wait list in the hundreds. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Turn green. My name is Ginger Huizar, Huizar, and I emailed yesterday regarding course electives for our middle schools. Thank you to those of you who responded acknowledging this educational negligence. My concern is that we are entering year 4 of waiting for our middle school in the Madison cluster, and nothing is changing. Vestal and Roseway Heights cut art for the middle schools. At Roseway Heights, it has been replaced with strategies and board games, where my child will play cribbage for 3 months, or a comic book class. By the way, PE is an elective not meeting the ODEP requirements. I will forward you our new son's schedule. That lists the same classes of comic book and strategy and board games as a SUN program for our elementary schools as well. I hope you share my concern in this effort. I took a peek at the 7th grade electives, a neighborhood away at Beverly Cleary K-8. No wonder they have so many campuses. They have beginning and advanced span, French, Spanish, study halls 1 through 4, art, futsal, drawing, drama, creative writing, film studies, kung fu, volleyball, ultimate frisbee for girls, coding, engineering, and stagecraft. 15 electives while my son sits a neighborhood away in board games. How is this equitable, culturally responsive, and such measurable expectations for growth and outcomes? Who gets an A and who gets a D in board games? Since PPS does not have a 4-credit course guideline for electives, the Madison cluster turns out office assistants and cribbage players. Our time for a change at an equal and measurable education is now. We need a middle school for the most diverse high school in PPS. All of PPS needs equal course offering and electives that meet grade level expectations and district mandated guidelines. You are failing us, especially those of us of color who come from lower socioeconomic status backgrounds or speak other languages that are all representative of the Madison cluster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee to just briefly say something that's sort of not a direct response to any of the specific testimony, but just an overarching comment.
So the plan for Teaching and Learning Committee and our next meeting is September 13th, is we will begin the discussions of middle school programming, and the middle school will be on the agenda every teaching and learning meeting throughout the year, so that we are really looking at providing equitable programming for sure.
Our next 2 speakers, Megan Robertson and Callie Ladd.
Hi, my name is Megan Robertson. I have 3 daughters in PPS. I have 2 at my neighborhood school, and my eldest is in her 3rd year at Access this year. I recently read a quote from our new superintendent that struck me strongly. He said, "I recognize that every child grows up in unique circumstances and that some of our students face barriers that can make focusing on school more challenging. It is our duty to ensure they have the supports they need to be successful," and that really resonated with what I'm hearing about how this past year's admissions process worked out. I want to share with you a few of the 5 goals for the access entry process that were listed by the work group last year. The first one was to promote equitable process to reach a broad section of highly gifted kids. The second was to integrate the process into the central system, making the entire system more transparent. And a third goal was to make access look like the overall population of highly gifted PPS students. I have to say, in my opinion, the new process has failed to reach these goals. This year's 3rd grade classes are dramatically under-enrolled. Teachers and staff report that there are no waitlisted students. As you may recall, the waitlist usually includes just as many as have been admitted, if not more. Enrollment and transfer indicated 40 openings at 3rd grade, but only about 25 students have been enrolled to fill those spaces. Beyond this, the classes are heavily gender imbalanced, with 13 to 15 boys and 5 to 7 girls. Great strides in gender balancing had been made in recent years, and I'm deeply concerned about the gender inequity of this year's admissions. It seems that something has gone deeply wrong with the revisions to the admissions process for access. The new process denied entry into the lottery for many students with demonstrated need, students who had been previously waitlisted, and students who have applied many years running. The district's attempts to assess applicants' level of need is inherently subjective, and it is in my opinion that scoring based on need really has no place in this process. I asked you to direct staff to do the following. 1, to fill this year's classes using applicants generated from the pre-offer lottery list made by enrollment and transfer. So there's already a list that ranks the students according to enrollment and transfers guidelines. 2, moving forward, simply place all 99th percentile applicants into the lottery for greater equity. 3, as you discuss middle school planning and equity, there is no choice but to direct staff to expand access middle grades to 3 strands per grade. This would comply with the designated equity measures that are being applied to the district at large. And accordingly, I would also ask you to direct staff to designate access as building and staffing levels based on current numbers plus that extra strand per middle grade. That's about 450 students. And let's not forget that middle school scheduling requires more numerous classrooms than self-contained classrooms do. I appreciate your consideration, and I look forward to working on improvements together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to split some of my time with a parent in our community. Hello, Chair Brim Edwards, members of the board. My name is Kali Thorne-Ladd, LADD. I come here today to discuss a matter of importance around equity. And I'd like to first ask all of the people here who are Kairos families, friends, and supporters to stand. I was pleased to see the superintendent's commitment to the foundation of equity that has been established over the last 10 years at this school district. And I know many of you have been personally champions of this. It is this very vision of equity from which Kairos PDX has emerged, focused effectively on closing the achievement gap. Kairos exists because of systemic inequities that have been perpetuated over decades. We exist to be a partner with the district on solutions. We are having an impact, and our location currently at the Humboldt School Building has been central to us doing so. The history of the Albina community, along with the history of Humboldt, cannot be ignored in our story. Humboldt is not just a building, but was at one point in time a centerpiece of Black education and scholarship and the center of the Black community. As the community at large seeks to reverse inequities that have been exacerbated by discriminatory policies that include redlining and gentrification, Humboldt is a part of this, and our presence there serves as a part of righting wrongs of the past. As longtime community leaders such as Tony Hobson, Ron Herndon, and Michael Alexander, who will speak today, seek to support the reemergence of Albina as a centerpiece of the African American community, as they work with some of you to reopen Tubman as a middle school with SEI doing a whole school model. Kairos is a part of that story. Kairos has been part of those conversations. 75% of our children are children of color, and the largest percentage of our children are African American. And when we began the lease, we were told that we can only be there 1 year because of DBRAC. They suggested that Access would be moving in. We learned from Access that they did not want to move in. In fact, a letter was written to the school board in 2016 asking that they not be placed there. As part of that letter, it also included alternative options to explore. My understanding this was because they had a wait list of about 175 children that would allow them as a tag program to serve larger and more diverse demographics of children, as we heard today. So this is an equity issue for them as much as it is for us. Hubble will not allow them to grow in the way they want to. This is too important of an equity issue to ignore. It is not clear to me what has been explored to this point, but Kairos is committed to serving children who are historically underserved in a historical Black community, and while we have been working hard to find a long-term home, we don't have another option right now. So my request to you is that you allow Kairos to remain at Humboldt and not move Access in, because it seems like both parties are trying to do equity work to support the community in different ways, and your commitment to equity would be inconsistent with that move. I'm going to allow Lydia to say a few words.
My name is Lydia Gray-Holyfield, Holifield. And the only thing I want to say is, as a parent that lives in that community, it's important for my daughter to continue to go to school where she is. And it's important for her to go to school there because it's directly across the street from our house. Not only is it directly across the street from our house, it's our community. It's important for her to see people when she goes to school that looks like her, that encourages her. My daughter has ADHD, and because of that, she wouldn't make it in a regular school. So I plead with you to allow us to stay at Humboldt and to partner with us, because my child is a PPS child. She's not a child that's just going to a charter school. She's also a part of PPS school district. And so I plead with you again to allow all of our children to stay there at Kairos. Thank you.
And I would just add, it's not about the legal thing to do. We're very aware we're a charter.
Just I'm
it's
going to
about
ask
a moral
that
thing
we have a
to do.
limit on the time,
Yeah,
so
I'm
you
done.
can just wrap up.
But I said it's not about a legal thing to do. It's about a moral thing to do. We're a charter. We're asking you to do what we believe is the right thing.
Great, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming this evening.
Lastly, we have Michael Alexander and Tiffany Penson.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Michael Alexander, Alexander. And I'm a member of the advisory committee for Kairos and the past president and chief executive officer of the Urban League of Portland. I'm here today to offer comments regarding the stabilization of the valuable work being done by the Kairos School. I offered testimony in February to this board at the occasion of their charter renewal. And the board showed the wisdom in approving that application in response to the overwhelming vote of confidence provided by the organization's leadership, its parents, and community leaders. And I return today to offer my support for the organization and my concern that they will lose the progress made in the past year that they've invested in transitioning to the Humboldt School. I fully understand and appreciate that this board has a number of competing priorities to navigate through at any point in time. The future of the Access program is certainly a key priority. I'm distressed, however, that there is consideration to a path forward that would require both of these critically important programs to weather unnecessary disruption, and in the case of Kairos, uncertainty to its future home. I admit that this issue involves a number of critical challenges. In reviewing the performance of the Kairos program, however, it can't be denied that they, in fact, have demonstrated a growing solution to a number of pressing concerns facing this board and our city. I'd like to mention three. The first is that Kairos students are Portland Public School students. If their school is displaced from this community, the district would be jeopardizing the unique opportunity that Kairos offers to over 200 future citizens. This would be disappointing on many levels. Second, Kairos was built by community to serve community. It intentionally sought to serve a student population that was largely African American. Humboldt is located in a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood. Being required to move would disrupt the school's track record of success and jeopardize its ability to deliver on its mission. And finally, I have to ask why the board would consider damaging a solution that works. Kairos directly addresses the egregious achievement gaps in educational outcomes that is the reality of too many of our underserved students. A recent report conducted by Echo Northwest and the chalkboard process verifies this. Since 2012, Kairos has a consistent success record of supporting the growth and development of African American students. We need all of the board to be aware of the potential for unintended consequences resulting from what may be well-intentioned recommendations from DBRAC and the staff that would displace Kairos from the Humboldt School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Tiffany Penson. That's Penson. Hello. I am here as a board member of Kairos. I also have worked in the education realm with Mayor Adams and currently Mayor Wheeler. So I have learned that educating our kids is one of the most important things that we can do because we don't all live forever. So we need to make sure that they are fully equipped. I also grew up in that neighborhood. My grandmother lived on Commercial. My cousins went to Humboldt. We ran up and down that street all the time. It was a staple in our community. When that school closed, part of that died, and then I watched the building just sit and sit and sit, and nothing happened to it. When Kairos outgrew their building and we had the opportunity to be at Humboldt, I felt, what a perfect place. It'll be like old times, walking up and down Commercial Street and seeing on the backside the kids playing, and that's something that we need. I work for government, and I understand all of this language that's thrown around equity and being inclusive and cultural competency that you guys also use. And all I have to say is none of those words mean anything, and your intentions mean nothing unless you're intentional about your intentions. And being intentional about your intentions as it relates to Black and brown kids, it's really important. You can use all those buzzwords, you can do all those trainings, but until you grab a hold of it and you say, we are gonna intentionally provide a space for these kids to thrive and to level the playing ground, it doesn't mean anything. Another thing is opportunity. Why do we have to come before you every year to ask for opportunity, to ask for the opportunity to provide opportunity to our kids? There's something wrong with that picture to me. We should not have to do that. We have a proven track record. The 4 women who have founded Kairos are beyond amazing, and we respect our children, the families, and the work that we do. What's right? I always used to say, why do you have to tell people to just do what's right? Well, because sometimes they don't know. So I'm here to tell you that this is right, is letting them stay there and have a home there. One of the things I think our school does, like no other, it builds confidence in our children. And I had the privilege of being taught to be very confident. Some may say maybe too confident, but when you have confidence, you can do anything. You can learn anything, you can be anything, and you can say anything.
I'm sorry, wrap up one last comment.
So the last
your confidence is coming through.
So as last thing is privilege. Sometimes it's people's privilege that allows them to tell us what's best for us. And sometimes you have to sit back and let us tell you what's best for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anyone else, Ms. Hewson? Great, thank you. And always, if people want to share written materials with the board, we're happy to look through them. We're going to move from public comment into other business, and we had tentatively had a request from the Service Employees Union to have a few minutes on our agenda. They are not showing up this evening. However, I want to call board members' attention to SEIU Local 503 represents 500 custodians and nutrition service workers, and they would like to invite all of us to their next meeting, which is on Saturday, September 9th at 11 a.m. at Jefferson High School. I'll provide this invitation to Roseanne and have it distributed to the board. Everybody's got it. So maybe in the future they'll come testify, but in the meantime, if board members want to go to that, that'd be great. Next, I'm going to ask in the other business, last weekend, preparation for the new school year, we had Community Care Day, and I'm going to ask Director Anthony just to give a brief recap of Community Care Day.
Thank you. This past Saturday, August 26, 2017, was Portland's annual Project Community Care Day. Approximately 6,000 volunteers showed up at 71 schools to prepare our schools to welcome our students back to school tomorrow. Most Project Community Care activities involve landscaping, such as pulling weeds, painting, and spreading bark dust. A heartfelt thank you to our students, families, staff, teachers, and community partners for sharing the love of our schools district-wide. We have a brief video that staff put together to show you the highlights of the day.
And
I'm thrilled that Guadalupe Guerrero will be our next leader in Portland schools. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next leader, Guadalupe Guerrero.
This is actually Community Care Day and a couple other things.
Good morning, everybody. I'm incredibly humbled. I'm deeply honored to be named Superintendent of the Portland Public Schools.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Your new
A hug
home
already.
is so
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it amazing?
So I had a chance at Franklin to visit a STEAM corridor. I saw some wonderful maker spaces, some science labs, engineering spaces, arts rooms.
Brand new auditorium. This is amazing.
Wow, wow, wow.
Move there because then we want to be able to move it out. We're here before school actually starts, so we can make this an exciting place for kids to come.
Well, to make it homey, we need to add our kids. I mean, in reality, our family and our community is what makes it feel like home.
I clean up
Why are you cleaning up?
for the first day of school. We're doing garden work to make sure all the garden's good.
So today is our Community Care Day here at Lent.
We're at Chief Joseph and we're cleaning up.
It's been about 6 years that Cleveland High School's participated in Community Care Day.
And I get to meet some of our new students here and build relationships.
Well, I bet the kindergartners are thinking, I'm glad I go to this school.
When a student gets their new backpack, maybe they're excited for school and maybe they're not, but they're all excited to get something new and something that they know they're going to be able to use.
So yes, it's awesome. I think it's needed. Are you ready?
that works. So tomorrow's the opening of schools for most of our students here in Portland. We're expecting about 50,000 students this year. Our enrollment continues to grow. We'll start the new school year with a new superintendent, a new board, 3 new schools, and new funding to address our critical health and safety work. And as you saw in the video, over the past few months and then intensifying this August, lots of staff in this building and our schools have been getting our schools ready for the new school year. And some of the things that have taken place over the last couple months and this intensifying this last week is making sure that we have a principal and an administrative team in every school, teacher in every classroom, really focusing on transportation, the buses, IT needs, nutrition services, and all the health and safety improvements. And all the work that's gone on, we believe we're going to have a great start to the school year. But to help things run smoothly tomorrow, we are setting up a coordination center here at BESC to handle any urgent calls or messaging as needed. So we know in the past, sometimes the first day of school or the first week, there's questions around transportation. So tomorrow, if there are questions about transportation or concerns, there's a phone number that the community can call. Also, principals, teachers, and staff can call them. But the transportation number is 503-916-6901. In addition, this coordination center will also have a hotline for principals, teachers, and staff to call if they have some pressing need on the first day of school. And that number is 503-916-6600. And starting at 7 tomorrow morning, that line will be manned. So we're hoping that that room actually will be fairly quiet, but we know first day of school things happen. So we hope if people have issues or concerns that they do call. In addition, our new superintendent, who's going to officially start on October 1st, happens to be spending, in advance of his official start, spending some time in the district getting to know not only our community better, our schools better. He's here this week, and tomorrow he'll start the day, I think, very early at Franklin High School, which is one of the 3 new schools that are opening, and then he'll be visiting several other schools tomorrow. And just as speaking about the new schools, we're going to have a report. It's been a long time since PPS has either built or rebuilt a school. And so we're going to ask Director Comstam to briefly talk about some of those great things that we had a chance today to see at Fabian and then tomorrow at Franklin.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this is the date, or this is the moment that we have looked at with dread on the calendar for several years, thinking how are we going to open school at the start of the 17-18 school year with a brand new Franklin, essentially new Franklin, the renovated piece of Roosevelt, brand new Fabian, and other work that arose that we weren't even aware of. And I just want to commend the Office of School Modernization for really delivering on all of it. It's been, a breakneck pace. I mean, down to this afternoon when we were at gleaming new Fabian, and apparently the sod had just been rolled out moments before the dignitaries arrived, but it looks fantastic, and it was an absolute privilege to be at Fabian today. And I think for myself, it filled me with a sense that, this is the type of community I want to live in, a community that shows that it values its children by making investments like this. So first and foremost, thank you to the taxpayers for the investment in the bond work. We did have our opening celebration at Fabian Elementary School today, brand new elementary school, fantastic partnership with Concordia University, Kaiser, Pacific Foods, Trillium Family Services, investment from the City of Portland. It is the kind of partnership that we would like to see for all of our schools. We'd like to leverage all of our bond investments with that type of collaboration in the community. It has pre-K programming there. It's a real gem, and we hope to just repeat those kind of
partnerships throughout the district as well. What a privilege for our incoming superintendent to be at Franklin first thing in the morning as those students walk into that gleaming new building that keeps the incredible integrity of its historic facade. And then likewise, phase 2 of Roosevelt, after their brand new buildings came online this time last year, now we have seen the restoration of the historic building. There's still another phase of Roosevelt that will complete some makerspace and some other pieces there, but that's substantially complete. So I think we have a little video that we want to show of these, but again, just we want to commend our contractors who have really hewn to a tough schedule, which included losing, depending on the site, about 9 work days due to snow and weather this year when it was already incredibly tight. Commend Jerry Vincent and his team, Kevin Spellman for really, and our Bond Accountability Committee of just citizen volunteers for really keeping a hawkish eye on the budget and bringing their expertise in construction and construction management into the oversight of all of this work. So lastly, I just want to say that we as a district are really serious about noting what we learned from all of this work and making sure that as we embark on our bond-funded work for the next round, 2017 bond, we integrate all those learnings and we just get better and better at doing this.
Our 3 to PhD partnership is second to none. There's no one around doing anything like this, and we're really able to revolutionize the way education is done, providing education for Concordia students so they become better teachers as they're graduating, having that mental health support for our families and our students and our teachers in the same moment really creates a new way of doing education. Having Concordia college students in our classrooms drops teacher-student ratio immediately. It just is a win-win-win for all 3 institutions. We're really excited.
It's the sorts of things that you'd want to have happen at every school in the system if we had the money, the facilities, the staff, and the people that were willing to walk that extra mile. So they have a STEAM project that's in the building. They have an early childhood component that is a whole wing of the building. They have arts. They have a health and wellness component. They have a nutrition component. So they have a program that is totally wrapped around everything it would take to make a family and children in that school successful. Sometimes you need a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, and you don't have to go far to find it. It's all right there in the building.
Fabian Pre-K-8 School and Concordia University has entered a very unique partnership. We are an exquisite example of how to connect the dots to making sure that all children and families are honored throughout the educational process.
And Concordia University, Trillium Family Services, and Portland Public Schools are coming together to create this unique in the nation program, 3 to PhD, that will have a focus not only on health and wellness and nutrition, but also science, technology, engineering, art, and math, so that everyone's hopes and dreams can be realized and everyone's being asked to step up.
We were invited into that partnership, I think, because Portland Public Schools, Concordia, and the community really wanted to look at kids and families and community holistically and how do we best meet all of their needs, and the school was really a perfect environment to bring all of us together along with other partners who have since joined.
College students are helping them read, helping them do math, helping them do science, helping them with health. So they are seeing that this college life can be for them, and if college isn't, what else are they doing? What kind of passions and interests are these college students teaching me about? How can they help me reach my highest dreams, which is what 3 to PhD is all about. We're going to start with infants as young as 6 weeks old in the new building, and our early childhood wing will have kids 6 weeks to 4 years old. We'll have 117 spots for our little bulldogs, and then we'll go K-8 after that. So it'll be a really neat mix of the early childhood center and the traditional K-8 model together.
I'm very excited
I am very excited. I can't wait. It's, I guess you can say it's like a dream come true because of the whole building, and especially say the science room, because we're going to be on a level with, say, high school.
We'll have a lot of different methods in which teachers can use to teach. We have multiple STEAM spaces, so science labs, maker spaces, art room. It's just really going to be an innovative way to do K-12 education.
Boys and girls and parents are driving and walking by the building each and every day, and they are posting pictures. Finally, in Jefferson Cluster, we're not closing down the school, we're not tearing down the school, we're becoming this treasure chest of hope. So this is a great way for children to feel like school is where they want to be.
There's nothing more rewarding than being able to live in the neighborhood with one of your buildings, to know the people who inhabit it, to know that your neighbors are going there, and that you've elevated the whole community is really very gratifying.
And to see it come alive is just an ode to what our community has done. We had 26 public meetings to design this building. There are parents who can literally put their finger on something on the map and say, that was my idea.
I'm excited because I'm gonna be the first class to graduate at the new school. I'm gonna be in 8th grade, and that's really exciting for me. I can't wait to go.
What's exciting is there's gonna be a pottery in the new art class, and that's really exciting because I love doing pottery, and I also really like doing art.
You know that saying that it takes a village to raise a child? Well, that's exactly what is happening here at Fabian. The whole community has come together, the teaching community, the college community, the community at large, trying to make certain that if you're a part of this, we're going to do all we can to guarantee that you're going to be successful.
How much we are in this together inspires me. Concordia and Fabian and Trillium and all of our partnerships have this feeling like we are going to change the world together. The parents and the teachers and the students and everybody is a partner in this building. And even though it's big and even though it's grand, we are still who we are at the heart of it, which is we love these children, we love what we're doing, and we want to try to make the best possible place for these kids.
It is a realization of our community's hopes and dreams all rolled together into this fabulous building.
When you're around people who are all seeing the dream that you see and everybody's working to it, it just works.
I think students and community should be excited about this because they're going to enter a building that they've never seen anything like it before. It's a K-8, it's an early childhood center, it has a grocery store, it has a health clinic in it, has a family resource room, has flex spaces, and it has an entire college of education co-located within it. There's nothing like this in the world that we've found. So being a student in this, I want to go back to school. I want to be a kindergartner and enter Fabian.
I think we have a video of the Franklin rebuild as well.
I actually think infrastructure is one of the most tangible ways that we can show our students that we care. There is nothing quite as exciting as coming into a space that's been built entirely for you.
4 6-top gas burners, 3 flat tops, and a grill. There's just so much we can do with those right off the bat. All the things in there just open up so many possibilities for these kids that we don't really have right now.
I'm excited because the kids that I've been working with have been working with equipment they've been able to shine with a limited capacity, and now they're going to get to show the world what they can do.
You'll have to drag me out of here. There's no, I love this place. I'm so excited.
There's mirrors and windows. It's not mirrors in here.
Pretty exciting.
I don't know if I want to go back to kindergarten, but I'd certainly want to go back to that high school. So later on this week, Franklin's going to have a couple of events to sort of mark the dedication of the new school. On Friday night, they're having their first football game in their new stadium, where they're going to dedicate the field. And you can't have a field dedication without a T-shirt. And so I've got shirts for each of the board members, but I also want to give one to Jerry Vincent, although I've only seen him in a tie, so I don't know if you wear T-shirts. But you've got to have a Franklin in the House shirt for the event. On the back, it's the date of the field dedication and their new logo. So Jerry, thanks for all your work.
Yes.
So Moses, I know you probably don't want a Franklin T-shirt, but we'll make you an honorary Franklin student. So I'm going to pass these down. If we have the wrong size, there's plenty of other ones that we can trade after the meeting. So it's going to be an exciting day tomorrow, and I just want to close out the start of school and our new building section of the meeting with just a thank you to Sasha Perrins and Roseanne Powell for stepping in over the last week to really make sure that all the little details with the logistics were covered, and pulling together the senior team to make sure that tomorrow our kids head off to school and have a successful start to the school year. So thank you for the help. Next, we're going to return to an item that's going to be on our agenda often this fall, not only at the board, but as Director Esparza Brown said, also in the Teaching and Learning Committee, and that's the topic of middle school planning and facilities planning in the district. And I'm going to ask Director Bailey, the chair of the Enrollment Forecasting Committee, and then also with Director Esparza Brown to talk a little bit about, give an update from the last board meeting and sort of the plans ahead.
So I'm going to attempt a segue first. 5 years ago, we were just starting a campaign for the 2012 bond, and I can look around the room and see a bunch of people who put in a lot of hard work on that campaign. Betsy, Kevin, Roger, Ted, Otto, who else am I missing? Our teacher partners with PAT, thank you, thank you, thank you. For now board members, but then civilians were part of our Portland Our Schools that partnered with the district to make it happen. And now, 5 years later, a lot of incredible work by Jerry and his staff, and before him, CJ. It's pretty exciting that when we get it together and partner up, we can do some pretty amazing things. When it comes to our middle schools right now, we got some work to do. But if we partner up, we can do some pretty, as Ginger made clear earlier, we still have some work to do. If we partner up and work together, we can do some amazing things. So tonight, Laura's Parker is going to give a quick update of where we are process-wise and go into some more detail about budget needed for opening 2 middle schools next September, where the money, how much money we will need and where it's going to come from. And do you have anything to add to that, Julie, or is that, I think that's what we're doing tonight.
Maybe after the presentation, Julie can talk a little bit, Director Esparza-Brown can talk a little bit more about what their committee is going to be covering.
Great, thank you. Thank you, good evening, and I just want to echo it was wonderful to see the opening of Fabine today, and I appreciated all of the excitement, and certainly we will carry forth that kind of excitement in our work every day, and tomorrow is a big day and we're all excited about it. So as you recall, 2 weeks ago, I gave you an update to the project plan for opening Harriet Tubman and Roseway Heights middle schools, and that overview of the project plan highlighted the major work streams around identifying the feeder schools and designing the middle school framework and localizing it to those schools, going through the staffing process, significant facilities and infrastructure upgrades for the 2 schools and related projects. And also, as you recall, in that presentation, we identified 3 critical decisions that are somewhat time sensitive that are needed to ensure success and delivery on the project. Tonight, I'm going to give a process update on the steps that have been taken to support those 3 critical matters. Those 3 decisions are board approval of naming the middle school feeder schools. Secondly, board approval of the feeder pattern implementation plan. Third, board approval of the financial resources needed to execute. And so I'm going to start with number 3, and I brought interim CFO Ryan Dutcher for any additional questions around the dollars. But as we indicated in the presentation 2 weeks ago, the financial resources needed to execute on the total project plan was approximately $10.5 million. What we've done to ensure understanding of that investment is to make sure that we've analyzed, and the budget team analyzed all of the work streams and determined what would be part of our fiscal year 18 budget, what would be built into our fiscal year 19 general fund budget, what was bond compensable, and what was currently allocated in fiscal year 18 versus what would be a new request that would probably require a budget amendment. So in doing that work, the breakdown is as follows in general terms. About $2.2 million of the project would be bond compensable projects related mostly to those facility upgrades for Harriet Tubman, and I think that's been broadly known for a while now. About $4.6 million would be anticipated in the allocation for fiscal year 19. So if you again think about that opening of school, all the work that happens in the summertime between moves, infrastructure upgrades, professional development, ordering of materials and resources, all those things could be built into the fiscal year 19 budget, and we would anticipate that process. That leaves about $3.9 million needed for fiscal year 17-18, which $1 million is currently allocated. So as we've been working through this, we anticipate that we'll be coming back for the process of gaining approval for approximately $2.9 million in additional monies for fiscal year 17-18. So that's not a small amount, but it's not 10.5 of new monies, and we wanted
I like the direction that headed.
We wanted to make sure that there was a general understanding of that. That it's a large investment, but we did have funding and resources and planning already occurring for this project.
So just for the folks keeping score, when you say fiscal year 18, do you mean the 2017-18 school year budget?
Correct. Yes, correct. Correct.
Right now. And the fiscal year 19, you're the 2018-19. Thank you.
Yes, apologies. So I'm going to let Ryan talk through that process for budget amendment.
Yeah, so for the budget amendment, so as Laura mentioned, we had already had $1 million in the budget this year. For a public budget, we don't like to put large line items for things where we don't have a lot of specificity around how we're going to spend it. So that's, if the question you want to ask is why did we not anticipate this for the current year budget? That's why we don't want to budget for things we don't have a lot of specificity. So we have the $1 million in the budget today because we knew we'd be doing some work. That leaves us a shortfall of about $2.9 million. And the process that we would use to add this into the current budget would be to amend the budget, and we amend the budget once or twice every year. Amendment 1 is already on the board agenda for the 26th of September. The plan is that we'll bring to all of you, because there's a fair amount in Amendment 1, we'll bring to all of you around the 12th a good summary assessment of all the different changes in the budget. And if at that point we have enough clarity into these different pieces, we would include that in Amendment 1, which you would then vote on at the end of September.
Is there anything going our way in Amendment 1 so
Pardon
far?
me?
Is there anything going our way?
Very few,
so far
unfortunately. Very few going our way. I keep looking. There's a couple of them, but not that many. If we don't, we usually amend the budget a couple times a year. Last year we did Amendment 2 in March. So my preference would be I like to have a lot of clarity before I put things in the budget, because really when we put things in the budget, we're going to allocate dollars to departments for them to spend. So if you don't feel like we have enough specificity and clarity by Amendment 1, I'd argue we push that to Amendment 2. So those are kind of our options in terms of how we manage this from a financial point of view in the current year.
And the press around identifying the funding, is of course to know what our scope is, what we're able to do, but primarily for those facilities upgrades, that team wants to get started. As you've seen examples of the exemplar work that they do, they want to get started, and so making sure that we identified what was bond compensable to allow them to get started on some work that they've actually started on at Tubman, but continue the larger project scoping and assigning of project teams to that, assigning of deadlines and expected opening for fall of 2018. That was necessary and in large part one of the urgencies around identifying the fund so early. As we get later, you start to impact what the other project teams are able to do. So I certainly hope that we're able to come through with the process of amending the budget in late September, as Ryan mentioned. So that the infrastructure teams, the professional development teams for later in the year, they're all aware of what their scope is, what their resources are. So that's the general update on the budget pieces. I have two other updates regarding work with the committees, but do you have any other questions on the budget content. Okay.
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
Can I assume that at some point we're going to get a real breakdown of what the $10.5 million in expenses is? And
Absolutely.
Will we have that at least for the capital expenses? Will we have that, do you think, in the next couple weeks?
Absolutely. And I understand that there's an FAO committee
Yes, there
meeting.
is. Okay.
Would you like for us to present it on that date on the 12th?
That would be great.
Excellent.
And
We'll plan for that.
And to be clear, so in order for it to be an amendment, we'll need to be really specific around the line items, what's happening, which department's doing it, et cetera. So that'll be required.
I mean, I can imagine some of the 4.6 million, it might be a while before you can, those are more incidental, so.
But I do have a general question about what types of expenditures are not considered bond compensable.
So there are some infrastructure upgrades that are, and some that are not. There's an investment around physical security in the buildings that would hit also the second round, the fiscal year 19. And so we just want to make decisions on here's what the standard is, here's what we'd like for the investment to be to bring up to standard, and make those choices. There's certainly all the relocation work. There's about $2 million of facilities work overall. There is development of the middle school science labs is an expensive investment to make sure that we have the world-class facilities for middle school science programming that's expected. That is a large number.
And there's no more pocket change from 2012 on that because that was specifically called out in 2012.
But those are the kinds of line items that we would expect again, assume to present and send forward to FAO, if I'm understanding correctly. Great.
And probably the biggest bond compensable item is the Tubman roof, which is $2.2 million. That's the biggest piece.
So I just have a general question about the expenditures. So does the expenditures that you're recommending create a middle school in which we could offer a rich and rigorous curriculum?
Yes, and that's what we're trying to stick to, right? So not only the facilities and upgrades that I mentioned around, an engaging science experience that prepares students for high school and for college and career, but also within instructional technology, an investment in classroom technology and student devices that would lend opportunities for blended learning as another example. Certainly an investment in curricular resources and professional development, of course. And some of those pieces I think can be called out in the work with the Teaching and Learning Committee coming up.
Great. Any questions? Chair Esparza-Brown, do you have anything you want to add relating to the planning coming up?
No, just as I said earlier, our first meeting will be September 13th, and the middle school will be on the agenda, and it will continue to be on the agenda for all of the meetings as we really work to figure out that instructional framework that will be equitable across all programs so that we can offer electives and offerings that will prepare children for high school and post-high school experiences. So we will ensure that throughout the year of work.
Great, look forward to that.
And we offer input. We welcome input.
And I do have one other update regarding the committee structure with the other two critical decisions, the naming of the feeder schools and the identification of an implementation plan. We'll be presenting and discussing those options with the Enrollment Forecasting Committee on September 7th for both the Tubman area and the Roseway Heights area. We'd anticipate probably a second meeting on September 18th. But in addition to these two meetings, there's a plan for community engagement with respect to the feeder patterns that would accompany the board sessions, both here and in committee work. And SIPA has articulated that plan and is adding to it literally every day to make sure that that is well-rounded. And you could expect an update on that exact communication, community engagement plan within a week.
I think some other pieces there is we will also be having discussions as we move along on the focus options in the relation to middle schools and dual language in middle schools as well.
In the teaching and learning committee.
In teaching and learning.
Great.
And I just want to acknowledge the uneven implementation of the new middle school program, that we're focusing on 2 schools opening up next year, while there are still significant issues with a number of our middle grades programs.
In terms of programming?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that that's the work. So while we're looking at these 2 middle schools, specifically, we're looking also more broadly at what a middle school program looks like in teaching and learning. I mean, that's the goal.
And at our K-8s that are continuing, the underfunding of middle grades.
Yep. And that is called out specifically in the middle school implementation plan. How do we adapt some of these best practices to our middle grade programs in our K-8s?
Well, it's also just pure funding and FTE as well.
Sure. Well, I think we're going to have a full discussion of that this year in the budget. Maybe that hasn't happened in the past years, but I expect that that will be a major focus this budget cycle.
And go ahead.
Sorry, can I just add to that? So stay tuned, because in the Finance, Audit, and Operations Committee, we're going to be hearing from the budget folks about a couple of proposals for a new staffing mechanism that is specifically trying to address the under-resourcing of schools, especially under-enrolled schools, especially in the middle grades. It's very exciting for those, for budget geeks. This is like, we're vibrating. This is so exciting. So I'm hoping that we'll start to make some real progress on that.
Yep. Great. So I want to float the idea of a board work session on middle schools sooner rather than later, because we've got budget pieces, we've got teaching and learning, we've got enrollment stuff. And it's good that we focus on that in individual committees, but it's also good that we bring it back for a coherent, that's not the right word, but I'm usually incoherent. Aligned, thank you.
We are
coherent is good too.
Yeah. So we're tentatively planning, and I'm looking at Roseanne just to make sure I have this right, potentially on the September 12th board meeting at Madison. Potentially at Madison, so that might be an opportunity to have a shorter sort of regular board meeting and maybe a work session, or also an opportunity for some sort of community feedback. So.
Which date might that be?
It's September 12th, the actual board meeting.
Okay. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm not looking at cat videos.
All right.
So that'll be, I think, an opportunity. So maybe all of you can think about how the best way for us to both have a work session, perhaps get some a deeper community conversation, maybe a dinner beforehand with the community or something on the 12th. So,
Great.
Cool.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
So the next item is around the Bond Accountability Committee and a quarterly update, and I'm going to ask Director Anthony to introduce and manage these agenda items.
Thank you. In November 2012, voters approved a $482 million capital improvement bond for Portland Public Schools. PPS Board appointed a Citizen Bond Accountability Committee to monitor the planning and progress of the bond program relative to voter-approved work scope, schedule, and budget objectives. In May 2017, voters approved a further $790 million capital improvement bond measure that also provided for oversight by the BAC. Mr. Spellman, you're here
Thank
to
you.
do the quarterly update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Brim Edwards, members of the board. My name's Kevin Spellman. I'm chair of your Bond Accountability Committee. I'm going to be very brief today to be respectful of your time. Leave some time for questions if you have them, and also not to take away from the celebration of today and later in the week. It's really it's an important week for PPS. And I'd like to add my support for Director Constam's comments about the designers and the contractors and the tradespeople and OSM who worked on those schools. And actually that video was kind of a nice tribute to the men and women who worked on those. They take a lot of pride in their work, and I think that's reflected in the finished products. We held our regular quarterly meeting July 27, and just received regular updates from OSM, who continue to provide us information on a transparent basis. It's sometimes when we open schools like we are this week, people kind of forget that that's actually not the end of the work. And all of these people are continuing to work on your behalf to close out phase 2 at Roosevelt and they've already started, of course, on phase 3, close out Franklin, close out Fabian. This all takes time and effort. And at the same time, while we're closing those, starting work at Grant High School with the subcontractor buyout, physical work on site, development of the guaranteed max, plus, of course, some preliminary work from the 17 bond. The 2012 bond now has reached $562 million, of which, as of July 1, 65% had been spent. The continued challenge for staff is the balancing of the remaining funds in the bond. Although there's a considerable amount of money to be spent, most of it is committed, obviously. And as we've been reporting for some time now, the remaining contingencies, reserves, etc., are pretty skinny, and there is still exposure in the closeout of these current schools. Plus, of course, we've still got $100 million plus to spend on a new modernized high school. So there's considerable risk still and not a great deal of reserves. And I know OSM is well aware of this, but we're watching that as closely as we can. The big success currently, of course, is the project schedules. And somebody told me today that Roosevelt actually got their temporary certificate of occupancy on the very day specified in the baseline schedule several years ago, which is pretty amazing. But that's true also, not to the day, but that's true of Fabian and Franklin as well. Those schedules were set initially 5 years ago. And to be able to celebrate an opening today is a tribute again to all of those people. They've done that with a really impressive accident record. Staff reported once more at our quarterly meeting that there were no accidents on any of the sites during that quarter. And that's obviously really important. We will be meeting again in October, and we're struggling a little bit in coming up with a new or a revised organization so we can continue to monitor the 2012 bond, but also start focusing on the 17 bond. So we're going to start at least with longer meetings. Those don't always, productivity doesn't always go up with the length of meetings, as you probably all know. But we're going to start with that, and we're going to work harder probably at a subcommittee system on specific issues to ease the burden on everybody. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can you talk a little bit about the schedule concerns with Grant right now, the design? We've got some red in the design phase.
Right.
Planning for Grant.
Right. That's thank you, Director Constam. That's a little bit of a quirk in this balanced scorecard, because once a square appears red for a number of these items, it's red forever.
Oh.
So the design was late, later than planned, so it's red, and we can't argue about that. What's happened, though, is that the construction actually started when it was supposed to. So you could argue that the fact the design was late really has no effect.
So, and we have full documents.
We have almost full documents, but enough to
we didn't start the demolition and construction concurrent with the completion, you know, the design
No, and that's
documents.
not uncommon. That's not uncommon at all. You know, if you look at, if I find the right one, if you look at the schedule for Roosevelt and Franklin, their designs were late too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a penalty sometimes for that, and I think I would argue on those schools in particular, there was a budget penalty for that. We hope we learn the lessons and that there won't be a grant, but we don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question. We're going to go back a little bit about the governance of the committee.
Uh-huh.
So thank you for all hanging in there and really providing a very important oversight function on behalf of the district and the community. We know that having external oversight provides the community with sort of an independent third-party sort of review. The question I have is, so you've been at it for quite a number of years, and is there a need perhaps to add some additional people or some new people? I don't know if you've had any attrition, but I can imagine. I'm not sure everybody knew that they were signing up for the 2012 and the 2017.
Right.
So I just, you can share an opinion, but I'd like you to think about that, because that might be something that there may be some new people who want to get engaged. Maybe some people are they're ready to celebrate and cycle off.
I thought it was a lifetime sentence.
We have done that.
We have two new board committee members who started this year. So two cycled off after 4 years, and one came on, I want to say, after a year or 2 years. So she's been on the committee 2 or 3 years. This is your committee, so we're certainly open to additional expertise at any time.
So some board members might have a point of view, but also if you've been sitting there and thinking, boy, it'd be great if we had X expertise on this committee, and you don't have it, let us know, because
sure.
I'm sure we could find somebody in the community to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is going back to 2012. Director Rosen at the time lobbied for having some oversight on public process to make sure we were running good public processes around the planning design component. But your committee is pretty much focused to the building side of it, correct?
No, I don't think that's fair.
Okay.
We have what I would call development expertise, which includes the planning and the design and the construction. We also have a performance auditor who we rely on greatly for everything in that arena. I'm trying to get a sense of exactly what kind of aspect you're talking about?
So we ended up addressing some of the bumps and jumps in the around the DAGs, the
Yeah.
design advisory
Right.
groups,
Right.
outside of the BAC.
Right. Right.
But there's a question of whether we should integrate those two functions, and I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but that's, right now, I don't know that we have a formal oversight checking those processes. Certainly I think everybody agrees they've gotten better, but we want to make sure that they continue to
Respectfully,
operate at a high level.
I would suggest that maybe this is the board's role,
Okay.
rather than subcontracting it to us, because we may be totally satisfied with the public outreach, and you may not, and it's your opinion that matters. You know.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
Has the BAC considered doing a kind of lessons learned report? You're now like 5 years in, right?
Yeah.
And I think
4.5.
You know, you've got, but who's counting? You know, you've had quite a lot of experience, and I'm guessing you have thoughts on things that might have gone better, and that would inform. You know, we've got another bond, so have you thought at all about kind of memorializing on paper your experiences over the last 4.5 years?
I think I hope what we've done is tried to integrate lessons learned as we've learned them, rather than kind of accumulate them. I'm sure we'd be.
Well, I'm just thinking that at some point you are going to have turnover in the committee.
Certainly.
So I think for future reference, it might be helpful to codify those things.
And I do think you have memorialized them in the your commentary on the audits. So we have these comprehensive external annual audits. And each time we've gone through that process, we've not only gotten the information direct from the auditors, but that has been presented to the BAC. The BAC has had the opportunity for back and forth with the auditor, and then you have presented to the board about, the BAC's take on the auditor's assessment. So I think that that's been a good and, to my mind, largely sufficient process to have that external review, which invites your committee to give your kind of comprehensive sense of lessons learned at the same time.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We are actually, one of our early efforts at a subcommittee is going to be looking at the most recent performance audit, plus any open items from prior years. So I think probably that satisfies what you're asking for, Director Moore.
That's good.
So I have one other just very small request, but as somebody who's new, it'd be great if on the materials that we receive that we get to have just whoever the current list of who's on the committee. So we just have that as a reference point. Thanks. Is there a second part to that? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Just thank you and all the committee members for incredible work.
And thank you very much, Mr. Spellman. And now, after Mr. Spellman has told us where we've been, I think that Mr. Vincent is going to come and tell us where we are going.
I'm looking for my brain. There he is.
Oh, very good. And while your brain is coming up, I would just like to mention, again, that we have the Franklin Field opening this Friday, beginning at 5:30.
Right.
Franklin's grand opening this Saturday at 10:45. And then on Friday, September 29th, we're going to have Roosevelt's grand opening. after which I expect that you and the Office of School Modernization will collapse in a heap.
Oh, yeah, we sure like to do that. So the reason you didn't see Roosevelt video up here today is we are doing the grand opening for Franklin and Fabian because they're done. Roosevelt requested to have open house tied to their first football game on September 29, and we're going to do this big thing next spring when Phase 3 is done, and we'll have their presentation on here. So just as a recap, all the buildings are done, new and current and existing renovated for Roosevelt. Phase 3 is all the field work, and that'll be done in the early spring. And then we will dedicate, and then there's a Phase 4 that's in design, which is the additional maker space, and that's the 4th phase to Roosevelt. But we're going to dedicate it after the 3rd phase next spring. So that's why if someone says, how come we're not seeing Roosevelt here? That's why. And that was at a request of the site staff, and we said, no problem. So we'll just do an open house for you. Good evening. My name is Jerry Vincent, COO of the school district. I have with me Dan Young, who's our Senior Director of OSM. We're going to talk about the quarterly update, and I'm just going to turn it loose to Dan.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to Kevin Spellman and the BAC. We always appreciate their input. They've been very helpful to the program and to OSM throughout the years, so I want to say thank you for that. And also want to say thank you for bringing up the safety record. That's something that we focus a lot on, but we don't talk about a lot usually in these forums. So we're very proud of our safety record to date, and that's a lot of credit goes to our contractors for that focus. So we have about 15 minutes and quite a bit to cover, so I'm going to go pretty quickly, kind of hit the highlights. Feel free to stop and ask any questions either about what I talk about or anything that's in your packets. Something to note about the packets, that's information that went to the board back in July, so we do have some updated information, but that's largely pretty well up to date. Some new information since we met with the board, as Kevin noted, that the total program budget for the 2012 scope of work was $562 million, but that does not include the bond premium that we just received when we sold our last issuance of bond principal earlier this month for the 2012 and the first issuance for 2017. And so that netted about $9 million of bond premium for the 2012 bond program. So we're up over $570 million for 2012. The total program is now a bit shy of about $1.4 billion for the capital program. We've approved invoices about $385 million. So in total, we'll spend roughly $1 billion over the next 8 years or so. So that is a big number. That said, considering today is the night before school starts, I think the bigger number is we have 4 schools that are ready for opening and ready for students tomorrow morning. So I'm very proud about that. The first one we'll talk about is Franklin. Franklin is substantially complete. All major construction activities are complete and all sign-offs are necessary for staff and students to occupy. Still working on finishing touches inside the building, and we'll be doing that for weeks to come. Also on the outside of the building as well, we do have one piece that is a little bit of a larger area that we're working on. That's the covered walkway between the existing building and the gym area. There's going to be a covered walkway that's going to have solar panels on that. That's going to be happening for a number of weeks going on forward. So that's the only significant work I'd say that we still have to do. Students have been using the field and gym for about a month now. We anticipate the project being fully complete by the next time we're up here giving this presentation. All training has been done for teaching staff, administrators, and maintenance staff. And all in all, things are going very well, which is a big credit to the team that's out there. Skanska is our contractor. Dowa is our architect out there, and our owner team is led by Johnny Matoyer, who is the project manager. Rolando Kilazon's our project coordinator out there, and Kevin Warren's our construction manager. So very proud of all of them. That project's going rather well. Here are a few photos of some finished areas, although I think this is kind of moot considering the video we just saw. Any questions on Franklin before I move along? Or any thoughts, Jerry?
No.
All right, I'll keep going.
It's a beautiful building.
Yes, it is. If
it is. It's
people have
beautiful.
not been out there recently, I very highly recommend you go out there soon. It is gorgeous. Very, very proud of that.
You can't leave without a shirt tonight.
Deal. Roosevelt Phase 2 is substantially complete, which is largely the 1921 historic building. All major construction activities are complete and all sign-offs have been received. We are, of course, still doing touch-up in there. And Phase 3, which is largely the site work, is underway, and that will proceed roughly until the end of this calendar year. The majority of the demolition in phase 3 will be completed soon, with the exception of the old auto shop. That's going to stay closer to the bitter end. We're going to keep that occupied and use it as the office, and then finally take that piece down. Work is progressing very nicely on the ball fields. If you've been out there, you'll see that. You'll also see that sidewalks have been poured and additional work has been done since the aerial photo has been taking place, and the temporary fencing has been put up as well. So that is moving along as we prepare and are prepared for students tomorrow. All furniture has been put in place. Training for staff has been completed. The Roosevelt staff really is the pros. They've already moved a couple of times, so they're ready for this, and we feel very confident about that. All in all, the 1921 building is in great shape, especially considering we just started demolition on that thing just over a year ago. So as Kevin noted, we hit the temporary certificate of occupancy right on time because that was the date we needed to do, and we had about 13 months to do it, and the team did that. So very impressed, very happy with that. Wanted to do a special shout out as the project manager, Patrick LeBuff, told me today that the custodians really went above and beyond making sure that place was clean, because there was a lot of construction activity in that old building this summer, and the custodians really stepped up and helped out a lot, and so that was great. There's
Or
also
do they have enough custodians?
They'll never have enough custodians, but they did a great job, you know. So we had 4 that I'm aware of, and I think they had a couple come in part-time and help out.
Yeah, and Community Care Day went very well also.
That was huge.
Also this weekend, and Patrick even told me that some of the volunteers actually, we did an area that the contractor was supposed to do, unbeknownst to them, so the contractor's actually going to give us a credit, so we're going to get some money back for them. They apparently went above and beyond, so that was great. So again, that team is very proud with Patrick LeBuff out there. We have Bruce Fickett's our construction manager, and then Lisa Crutcher-Lewis is our contractor, and Bassetti is our architect, so very happy with everyone out there. Some photos of completed work and work in progress. Classroom you'll see in the top left, hallway in the bottom right, flexible learning space in the bottom left, and then you'll see us munching on that old cafeteria building in that photo right there. That one is completely down. We're working on the library right now.
So that upper right photo there, when you get the old food service building down and you take the 10plex of portables down, and then we're leveling the library, you can kind of see the Franklin Majestic reappear. There were some trees there that were not part of the new plan, and you can kind of see what's hiding back there. And now it's coming to the forefront, and it looks just as beautiful as Franklin.
Grant High School, here is a recent aerial photo, though that doesn't look substantially different than what it has for years. Staff has been successfully moved over to Marshall campus, so Marshall is ready to receive students tomorrow. Transportation plans are in place and have been communicated. TriMet has been a great partner on that process, as was the DAG Transportation Committee. They are very helpful in getting that plan together and in place, so we feel confident that that has been well messaged. We have a really awesome interactive map on the website too, if people haven't seen that. Contractor has mobilized out on site and has started selective demo. And as Kevin noted, we're in the process of negotiating the guaranteed maximum price and buying out that work. And that has been a challenge, but we're continuing to do that, and we'll have an update on that here very soon as we finalize that contract. Here's some old photos of Grant. These will be archived here soon, as these will be undergoing demolition. The library has been cleared out, the cafeteria has been cleared out, and there's a picture of the old auditorium. I believe all the seats are already out of there as well. And then the old gym, which will be converted into learning spaces, classrooms. Fabian had the grand opening event today. I think most people were able to attend that. That was a very nice event and very well attended. I actually was not expecting that many people out there. It is, of course, substantially complete. We, of course, all have all of our sign-ups. There's still small stuff that needs to happen in the building, both inside and out, largely landscaping, and some public right-of-way work. Again, more landscaping in the public right-of-way. The field is going to be roped off for another few weeks while we let that grass mature, because that was seeded, that didn't go in as the sod, and so we want to let that mature before we turn all the kids loose on it. So that's going to be there for a couple weeks, and the school knows about that, and that has not been an issue. All building systems training has been held with staff, administrators, and maintenance. All our stakeholders have moved in, and all systems are a go for tomorrow. The team out there was led by architect was Bora, our contractor was Todd, Eric Girding is our project manager, Ayana Horn is our project coordinator, and Darren Lee is the construction manager. And I think they're our only team that have been together throughout the life of the project, and they were great together, and we're very, very happy to have them. They've done great work. Here's some photos of the interior, but I think everyone more or less saw this either on the video or in person today. But it is a beautiful new building. One project I want to note before I jump into this that I don't have a slide for is Cesar Chavez. We started the elevator last summer, a new elevator. Then we put it on hold for a year. That was phase 1 was last summer. We started phase 2 this summer, and we're continuing phase 2, and that will complete by the end of this calendar year. So that's another project that's going on, being managed by OSM also.
Before the health and safety, there's, we certainly appreciate the attention that OSM gets, but there are 3 departments that when we finally turn this thing over, after all the snow days and whatever, and get that in, there's other departments that are under the gun to do their job. The IT department is on these sites, weekends, nights, everything, trying to get computers set up. There was delays in equipment being shipped. They are trying to hook everyone up as fast as possible, printers, phones, what have you. Obviously, the custodians, always, much bigger sites than there were before. And the other one that you might not know is these are all brand new kitchens for nutrition services. They have to come in and learn absolutely every piece of equipment, and they have to burn it all in and use it, whether it's a piece of equipment that might be for a future rainy day or not, because the warranty starts on that equipment if they don't figure it out and make sure that it's working correctly. So, and it's a complete shift for them to take food out, reset everything. They have to reset the dial on everything that they do. So they've been amazing too during this time. So, we certainly, when we're talking OSM, we're really talking about a lot of the departments that are working hand in hand with this. And I just wanted to make sure they got a shout out before we kind of started to talk a little bit about health and safety.
Yeah, a good point, agreed. I mean, we really should have like an official thank you list. I mean, the building staff as well, they really start to take control and positive control of these things when it comes down close and do a great job. All the principals have been wonderful. Security is another department that we work with closely, and they are a huge help in getting these buildings up and running. So, and certainly many others I'm forgetting at the moment. On to health and safety, specific to the 2017 bond scope of work. We have kind of a 3-step process to implementing the $158 million of health and safety improvements. We have immediate work. This is largely kind of quicker, fast action work that was, some of it was already in place before the bond even passed. So we're working on that right now. Intermediate work, which is work that we plan on completing roughly in the next 12 months, and then the long-term plan, and that is the plan that we will follow to execute the full $158 million of work. The immediate work is underway right now at over 50 schools. It includes scopes of work that include asbestos abatement, fire alarms, lead paint removal, radon, roofing improvements, security improvements, and lead water fixture replacement. Some of those we actually have contractors and people working in schools. Others are in the planning or the design phase, but all that work is proceeding right now. Our intermediate work, we have started to identify the scopes and the projects that we want to complete during the school year and next summer. So we're scoping that work right now. We're going to get design teams on board for that. It's similar types of work that we see with the immediate, the radon, the asbestos, the roofing that's going on now, but a lot of it will be larger scale. So stuff that we can do during the school year, we will do, and then next summer we'll be very busy with large roof replacements, large abatement projects. Probably see some new elevators go in next year, also so large ADA work, things like that. That is our intermediate work, and we're working on that as we speak.
The intermediate work is an overlap when we speak about Tubman earlier, where OSM and our facilities department were overlapped together to get that work done. OSM doing the part that's bond compensable, facilities doing the part that isn't.
Oops. And then the long-term plan. So there are efforts underway to prioritize for $158 million of health and safety improvement. That's roughly 10% of what's been identified by FAM. So what exactly are those projects and how are they going to be prioritized? So there's an effort underway to identify what all those are, and then we'll have an execution plan of how we will complete those over the preceding years. So that's what the 3-step is to health and safety improvements.
And a lot of this comes in alignment with the Health, Safety, and ADA Subcommittee that Director Rosen oversees. So I'd like to get together soon, Mike, and talk about how this rolls out, how we engage the community involvement process, and what this looks like to gather their input. So this is where the bulk of the money is, and that's why we want to make sure we needed to land these projects this month and start school successfully, and September is all about starting to engage that group.
And quickly on the modernizations and the replacement work that's in the 2017 bond, we are just starting the design process on Kellogg. We have the design team under contract. They are reviewing all the work that's been done to date, and what they're doing is validating the work that's been done to date versus what the budget is, and then we'll be coming before you with a master plan, hopefully here pretty soon. But they're starting underway. They're working with our project manager, Steve Efros. Madison, we are right now negotiating with that design team. We've done the procurement process. We've identified the highest ranked firm, and we're in contract negotiations with them right now. So you'll be seeing their contract come before you probably at your next meeting, but sometime very soon. Then we'll kick off that design process as well. We're going to begin the DAG process with both of those groups pretty soon. We want to get recruitment underway pretty quickly, give people a good amount of time to decide if they want to participate. So that's going to be happening at the same time that we start the recruitment process. We're also going to have communications with Lincoln and Benson as well, the master planning committees, to give them updates of what's going on, better ideas about schedules and activities that are happening basically between now and when their DAG process begins. Yes, Scott?
Do we have a shot at Kellogg in 3 years?
Well, that's going to depend on how city and permitting and how concurrent we can get on doing the abatement demolition of existing while we're designing and submitting the permanent design, the final design, and getting those in. So it's all going to be about land use and permitting, and we will be engaging the city next month as to what our plan is, and have some robust conversations with them.
Thanks. On the permitting side, Jerry, so you're saying there are things we have to do differently, or we just have to expedite the process?
Some of their process is, and Dan probably has some more detail, but some of their process is sequential versus there was a time when it was concurrent. So we'll be asking for some concurrency in this process so we can speed the project up.
And we're looking at the schedule in detail with the design team, so we'll have more. We already have a preliminary one, but we can bring more detailed information to either you or the subcommittee.
So if somebody wanted to participate in the DAG process, how do they do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You want to take it?
That's a great question. So we're going to contact the master planning committee members and make them aware of it, of course, as well. But we're also going to advertise it, and we're still having discussions about what's the best way to advertise it. We want to make sure that we have a good representation across our communities. So we're still having some discussions on that. I don't have the exact answer to that yet.
Okay, when you get to the process,
do you have suggestions?
Well, I was going to say, when you get to the process where you're ready to start with applications, I think there's lots of people on the board who have community relationships that could be helpful, or suggestions of maybe organizations that you could tap.
So, and we'll be ready next month. Again, we needed to land to summer work and start school. So I was actually at Lincoln last night for one of their meetings, and we are, all these sites are, like Dan said, who from the existing master plan committee, pre-design diligence committee would like to continue on. When those are identified, then we will then open it up to others. So right now is when we want that input. This is a September exercise. With refinement in October, are we still underrepresented in certain areas? And by November, we want to start some of these DAGs up. So it's, give us a week and we're ready to hear from you.
Amazing.
Well, I just like to say, there's just no way I could even attempt to do all this stuff without Dan. He's been amazing, and he has all the knowledge. And Hurie, Ken Fisher, our program manager with Hurie. Hurie's our construction manager and program manager. And I'm just saying that, we have like 13 of our own employees, and you just heard how many billion? 1.5 billion. So this is rough, and it is just it's been a journey, and when we can pull our teams back from these sites that have been site-based, we haven't seen our site teams since maybe 30% in the construction. I joke when they come into the office, I introduce myself to them. And when we can get them back, we're going to take a day, and we're just going to thank them, and we'll probably do a professional development day. And we just need a downtime because it's been crazy, and it's been super long hours, and it's been real stressful, and we have come out with a lot of great lessons learned. But I just wanted to thank Dan publicly and Ken and all of his teams because they're the reason I'm only awake half the night. You know, if I didn't have them, I'd be awake all night.
But to have largely landed all of this work on time and on budget in a climate of probably unprecedented construction escalation costs is really remarkable. And you've been adapting and adapting and adapting. And it is really remarkable. We got a little bit lucky with our bond premiums, but that's not the whole story. So really, truly incredible work. And I won't name names, but we know that there are others involved in these same endeavors in our community that are delivering results that are, you know, massively over budget. And so this is really a feat for Portland Public Schools.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And for that, you get a T-shirt. You gotta at least get your shirt. Thank you. Okay, we're running a little bit behind. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Doesn't Kevin get a T-shirt?
Yes, could you come on down and you can get a shirt too?
You can take this one. Here's a large.
All right. Thank you. Roger, what's up? Thank you.
You know, while we're reorganizing a little, I just sort of feel compelled to say, you know, there's a lot at PPS that a number of us have been critical about over the years. And this construction work has been just stunningly well done. I mean, I can't say enough. It's that the buildings are beautiful. And I know everybody has been working 28 hours a day for years. So, thank you.
Hear, hear.
Got to celebrate the wins. So, our next item on our agenda is the draft public records policy. And the board policy and governance task force met last week to work on both a draft complaint policy and a draft public records policy and associated administrative directives. We made significant progress on the board public records policy, and I would say that we still have significant work to be done on the complaint policy, plus it needs to be integrated and aligned with the work that Director Constam's committee will be working on. But in general, I'd say we're pretty close to having a public records policy ready for a first reading. So we thought tonight we'd preview the new draft policy and have a brief discussion and an opportunity for board members to raise questions. And you all should have, I think you've got a packet, and the top document is proposed revisions as of 8/24/2017. I'm going to ask you to actually turn the page over to the next draft, because the next page really reflects the work that was done in the committee, the task force the other day. And I'm just going to run briefly through it, and I see we've got our experts now lined up in the front row, just in case we need them. Dave's claiming not to be one of the experts. So just generally, I would say the thrust of the changes and the revisions to the policy is to really change the bias of the policy. That our bias is going to be, we're a public institution, we're public officials, we're public employees, and therefore the work we do should be public. And that instead of looking for ways or reasons not to make our work public, we're going to assume that our work is public unless there is a very clear and compelling reason why it shouldn't be. So if you look through the revisions that we've made, we had quite a lot of discussion about in the first section because there are two areas where we have indicated that we potentially could make decisions not to release public documents, and those instances would be if we're prohibited by law, which seems like a pretty valid reason not to, and then also for significant and likely legal, physical, or business harm to the district, students, staff, or facilities. And we had quite a discussion about whether that was overly permissive or might lead to more cases than we wanted of documents being withheld. And I think we added some qualifiers, and then also one of the things is if it turns out it's we've opened the aperture too broad, we can always tighten it. So we had quite a bit of discussion about that. And then if you look at section 1, we added some language about the method in which public records would be processed. Sometimes I think, and this isn't because of bad intentions or purposely doing it this way, but I think because it's not clearly stated, sometimes people think that some things get processed quicker than others for reasons other than they arrive first. So we wanted to be transparent in the process by which we do it, that they'll be done in the order of receipt without regard to the nature of the records or identity of the requester. And number 2, we added some language that the records, generally will be at no or minimal cost whenever possible. Frankly, and Ryan has lots of data on all the requests and how many of them actually require a lot of work, and most of them, and you can correct me, shake your head if I'm wrong, but most of them we can comply with the records requests at no cost or minimal cost to the requester. And then we also had a discussion, if you go down to number 5, that sort of setting up an internal process of who makes the decision. And this is, again, a philosophical discussion of the board and how do we want to process it when it's not so clear. So I think our expectation, it sounds like most of the things that come in are pretty straightforward. Our public records officer will process them and do it in a timely and courteous manner. But in cases where there may be a legal exemption, we're going to have the public records office work in coordination with the general counsel. The superintendent will make the final decision. And so we thought that was setting up a clear process so the public could see. It doesn't just go into BESC and then like it's not clear who's making the decision, so really being clear on how the decision making happens. And then the last item was number 8. So originally how this was drafted, we had it that if you disagreed, that if you felt the district was inappropriately withholding records, you'd go straight to the DA. And while that is a mechanism that we've retained, we also felt that, for example, going to the DA, there may be people who either feel like it's a complicated process or for some reason don't want to have an interaction with the district attorney. And that may be actually an impediment for people just saying, never mind, I'm not going to do it if I have to go, request the DA to withhold it. So we put in this sort of snack back provision that somebody can appeal that final staff decision to the board, and that the board could be an alternative to going to the DA, although people could still go straight to the DA if they want to just skip the board, that's fine. And then a question was raised about the board practice, perhaps in the past, of just sitting on recommendations, and therefore public records aren't being released. So we have this provision that if the board doesn't act within 7 days, and this is Jeff. Okay, I think I might be venturing into it. If we don't act within 7 days, it just goes straight to the DA. Is that the appeal? Do I have it right? Okay. So we tried to build in a process by which the average citizen could easily access public records of a public institution, but build in and be really transparent about the process by which we are doing the work, and make it and reduce as many barriers as possible, whether they be legal or sort of part of the bureaucracy or the opaqueness or cost, so that people have access to the people's business. I'm going to ask Director Rosen or Director Moore if you have any other flavor you want to add to sort of the policy discussion before we just open it up broader.
I don't have much to say except that I do think we're going in a different direction, where we're assuming that it's significant that we're assuming that our documents are available and accessible to the public under most circumstances, and I really appreciate that. Just thinking back to being on the other side of the fence, and I think it's going to do a great service to the community.
Yeah, I would echo that, and I want to thank the staff for turning this around very quickly. And being very receptive to questions and making changes. So it was great, and I think this is it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah. I want to add to what Rita said too, that this is something that SIP has been working on for a long time. 6 to 9 months in terms of how to reform the process, starting with the hiring of a public records officer, which has made tremendous improvements. So now to see it all come together, and with the engagement of the board on revisions to the policy, it's great, but that's been really good work.
Do any of you want to, do you want to add anything else to the discussion, or should we see if, is there any misstatements of the facts?
No, I think that the process is moving forward, and the current draft reflects the meeting on Friday, and there's another meeting next Friday where hopefully we'll come up with a final draft that's ready for prime time this summer.
Okay. So any of the board members who aren't on the committee or on the task force have any questions or concerns or?
No, just thanks to staff and to my fellow board members. Good work.
I would say the same and just echo Mike's comments. I think it's very positive direction.
Director Constam? Anything?
Nope, I think it's great.
Moses?
I think it looks great.
Okay. Hey, that's pretty good. So next steps for the policy, we have a meeting on Friday, and I think we'll probably take one last pass at the policy. Maybe we'll go a little bit deeper on the administrative directive and look at some of the other accompanying materials, potentially some of the implementation plan. I do think one of the things that really needs to accompany this, and this will be a very important part of the, I think the rollout, is just raising awareness with among both school staff and district office staff that anything we put on paper, any materials we create are the people's work and public documents, and so if we're thoughtful in what we write, I think it's very easy to have a very liberal public records policy. So thank you for all the work.
So just a point of clarification. So my understanding is that we're also going to be having some public input opportunities. because quite a few people have used the public records request system, and so we're going to build in, I think, opportunities for people to comment on this new draft.
Yeah, great point. So we'll have the task force meeting on Friday. The following board meeting on the 12th will have the first reading, and I think at that point we've already got some great feedback. But at that point, we'll ask for feedback both from the community, but also the media, who are sort of the other big users of the public records process. Great. Thank you very much, and nice job.
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is just the board, committee, and conference reports. And I don't think there's any committee reports, although some of the committee chairs want to provide updates if they haven't already. And I'm going to actually, though, start, unless he tells me otherwise, with the student representative, Moses, who this afternoon had a roundtable with the incoming superintendent and some other students. So want to share with us?
Yeah, so earlier today I met with the superintendent and a few of the people who will be sitting on the Student Advisory Council and some ASB presidents from across the district. And we talked about some really good things about Super SAC moving forward, so redefining Super SAC. And so hopefully that I'll be able to provide a recommendation to the board, and then we can get some board feedback, and then the superintendent about what we want to look, what we want that student voice avenue to look like. So maybe becoming more independent and not just student advisory council, or we want to shift to the student union. We're not sure exactly what we want that to look like, but we're hoping with everyone in collaboration we can figure out and really nail that student voice avenue and get that up and going again. And then moving forward with the superintendent, we just he offered what he could do on his half, and so finding an advisor in central office and addressing some issues, and connecting us with the appropriate staff people in central office in order to address those issues that we deem a priority for Super SAC. And then our first meeting for Super SAC will hopefully be around mid-September, and we can get those priorities addressed and better build the foundation for Super SAC, or whatever we decide that avenue is, and move forward from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Moses. Thank you. Do any committee chairs want to announce meetings coming up or any things related to their work? Director Anthony.
Very briefly, and this is mostly an appeal to the staff, although it's good information for the rest of the board to have. This last session, the legislature passed Senate Bill 111. This is not something that had gone through with much discussion or much comment at all. I watch what the legislature does pretty obsessively, and I had seen no mention of this whatsoever. But what 111 does is enable school districts to potentially bill Medicaid for some SPED services, for some school nurse services, and for some services provided in school-based health clinics. For Portland Public, depending on how this is administered and rolled out, this could result in multiple millions of dollars in new revenue for us. These are areas where we spend a great deal of money currently. It's a brave new world. Nothing has been done on it up to this point. All we know is that next week, the Oregon Department of Education is going to be meeting to discuss what their rules around it may be. And we've got a fly here. And it seems to like me.
Yeah.
But they're going to come up with a timeline for how they're going to roll this out. They're only going to allow 9 school districts in the state to do this as a pilot, and Portland Public should want to be there. Certainly in terms of sheer numbers, in terms of percentages, we have the biggest need. And I understand that now through the Oregon School Boards Association, that message has been delivered very forcibly to the Department of Ed. This Thursday at 9 o'clock, Yusuf Awad doesn't know this yet, but he's going to be meeting with a cast of thousands. I'd had a pre-existing meeting with him, but half the people in the room, Jerry Vincent, Laura Parker, Ryan Dutcher, Antonio Lopez, but also Corinna Wolf, Mary Pearson, Courtney Westling. And the point of this is, if there's anybody else out there who thinks they want to put their oar in, we're going to have Medicaid billing and HIPAA compliance and revenue, and it's going to be a hell of a party, people. And 9 o'clock Thursday morning. There we are. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, and I should say a very deep thank you to our benefits person, Terry Burton. Terry is the one who opened up the opportunity that enabled me to know about this. So I'm very grateful to her.
Great, thanks, Director Anthony.
Paul, do you know anything about movement at the federal level that would prohibit school districts from billing Medicaid? Because that is something that that there's a lot of lobbying going on.
I know that there is. No, I haven't heard anything definitive yet. It's possible that Oregon may weigh in heavily on this, depending how this rolls out.
Yeah, because there are a lot of school districts who already have that and already do bill Medicaid for a lot of those services, and now there's movement in Washington to limit the ability to do that. So might be a great party, but we might be getting there a little late.
And if we're talking about processes, because I know that I've been, as a school psychologist and counselor, been somewhat involved in that, and I know it's been really time consuming and almost not worth, a professional's time. So if we have the ability to really direct or comment on the process itself.
Yes. If we had to bill on a per site basis, the HIPAA rules for putting in that IT are very, very expensive. It would be absolutely cost prohibitive for us. Mr. Vincent has many opinions on this because we looked at doing this same thing for transportation for SPED students last year, and he still hasn't quite recovered.
Director Constam or Director Moore, anything from your committees? Director Bailey?
Wait.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to announce that the next Finance, Audit, and Operations Committee meeting is on September 12th at 3 o'clock. It's the same day as the next board meeting.
Director Bailey?
And that's where I was going. The next meeting of the Enrollment and Forecasting Committee, we have two scheduled, one September 7th at 6 o'clock, and the next on the 18th, again at 6 o'clock. Be there, be square. I've been trying to schedule those at a time where people who have a daytime job can grab a bite to eat and show up, much to the chagrin of staff.
Director Rosen?
I'm this close to having a report. At the next meeting, I promise I will.
Okay, perfect. Great. So next we're going to go to the business agenda. The board has a revised business agenda before them, which now includes Resolution 5505, appointment to the Custodian Civil Service Board. That resolution has been posted online and is available in the back of the auditorium. Board members, are there any items you'd like to pull for a separate discussion and vote?
I just have some questions about a couple of items.
Yes, and so since Interim Superintendent Awad is not here. My guess is we're going to ask Van Trung to come up and answer the questions.
Please.
While she is coming, could I make a comment on Resolution 5503, please?
Yes, you may.
Resolution 5503 names the new members of the Community Budget Review Committee, and this is an enormous public service. The CBRC delves very deeply, not just into the district's annual budget, but into the inner workings of everything that touches the lives of our children. It is a massive time commitment, and I think it deserves just a brief moment of recognition. This resolution will put Justin Alardo, Sarah Kerr, Roger Kirshner, Judah McCowley, Irina Phillips, Harmony Faraz, and Betsy Salter onto the CBRC. And the board, the district, and all of our children owe them a deep debt of gratitude. Roger Kirshner has been here sitting through our meeting. Thank you very much, Roger. Betsy Salter was here and just gave up. But thank you and the rest of the members very, very much. It's awfully important work.
Nice call
Yeah.
out.
Thanks, Roger.
So go ahead, Director Sparza-Brown.
Thank you. So my questions are around the items for Greenwood Publishing and Booksource, because I thought last week that we had approved about $4 million that was for the literacy adoption, and I couldn't recall. So this would add an additional $3.5 million. Is this still for the same K-5 adoption, or what are these materials for?
I have reviewed these with my staff, and I think that's why the reason why I have them here, because this is part of the adoption from last year and now. So I want to make sure that they have the full pictures, and so I will give it to our interim
Because as
senior
I
director.
recall from our budget discussions, I thought the adoption for this year that we had budgeted some more around $4 million, when this takes it closer to 7.5. Is that
Director
right?
Sparza-Brown, I'm sorry,
No.
I think you may be looking at our last meeting's.
Yes, we don't have anything like that for this
Oh,
agenda.
Sorry. Yes,
Yes,
I have.
it's what's already been approved.
Okay. There we go. Thank you.
Scared me for a minute.
That
Phew.
answers that. Thanks, Julie. Yeah.
Just to be noted that I didn't notice that either, so.
That's why I wonder. It's like, wait a minute, didn't we just do this?
Yeah.
Would have been good to look at the date. Thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Thank you for all being at the ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple other contracts on there, so we just want to be ready to respond to your questions.
I didn't have any questions on other contracts, though.
Okay.
Tonight's contract, that is.
Yeah.
I looked
Thank
at
you.
those two.
So I do want to thank all the staff, especially who have people who have items on the business agenda, for staying to the bitter end.
Thank you. Well, thank
So
you.
thank
On a
you.
s- On a school night.
Yes. We should let them get home, get ready for school.
Why aren't you in bed, young man?
Anybody else have any items on the business agenda this week or last week's?
Or last month's.
4 years ago. Can we
Okay.
call the question or whatever?
Ms. Houston, are there any additional changes to the business agenda? Great. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the business agenda?
So moved. Oh, second.
Director Sparza-Brown moves and Director Anthony seconds the adoption of the business agenda. Ms. Houston, is there any public comment on the business agenda? There is not any public comment on the business agenda. Is there any board discussion on the business agenda? The board will now vote on the business agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? The business agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0 with the student representative Tran voting
Yes.
yes. And with that, we're The next regular meeting of the board will be held on September 12th and will take place at Madison High School. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.